The Hail Varsity Radio Saturday morning show. Strap yourselves in. Here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt.
Y'all don't even know he was a virgin until he's 28, and now, roll tide.
And Mark Cranack.
Time has come for someone to put his foot down. And that foot is me.
Welcome to it. Weekend editions here. It's Hail Varsity. We're powered by Cornhead Lager. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. That foot is me from Dean Warmer is for Mark Cranack. Part of his open for many, many years. He's off to travel baseball this weekend. A lot of holiday tournaments. He's out in West Des Moines somewhere. Maybe he's eating leftovers at this hour from Jethro's. Have you ever experienced Jethro's in West Des Moines?
No.
Ribs, barbecue?
I have not.
First had it when I went and saw Dave Matthews with my buddy, the pharmacist, Jeff, many years ago. And it's been kind of a staple for a lot of Nebraska area teams. This is not a free advertisement, although it sounds like one. But that's one of the spots you stop out when you're doing travel baseball. Soon enough, Lincoln will have a hub, thankfully, of baseball and softball diamonds to pick from with youth baseball. That is in the works. I'm excited for that. But Cranack off doing dad baseball. Love it. Happy for him. We'll commandeer him next week, hear about his experience. Elijah, you're ready to rock and roll. I was up before this sneezing fest happened. I don't know, 6 o'clock, woke up, body clock got me going. Dogs are fed, they're outside, they're beating the hell out of one another. And, we're off and going. Just beautiful morning. And I know Nebraska baseball fans are probably about to arrive or are already setting up the cooler and maybe some breakfast burritos at the Chuck, getting their 9 a.m. baseball game going. What a win last night for Nebraska baseball, 12-5. Yesterday afternoon is a better term as they survive and advance on Elimination Friday. And they're into the semis. We'll cover it. Brandon Vogel going to join us from Counter Read, counterread.com. Plenty of football thoughts from Vogues. We touched on it a little bit yesterday with our segment with Bill Dolman and Josh Pate, late kick, really good host. Does a nice job, and was talking about the mood of Nebraska football fans as you go in to these summer months awaiting kickoff. Would love to discuss that with you. In the stream, as always, find your way to the Hail Varsity YouTube channel. Like and subscribe there. Cranack is in the high V.
That's a free shout out. How does he keep on doing these free shout outs?
No, Cranack is a genius, so he'll get it all worked out. Cranack is in high V. I thought Cranack, if you're streaming us on your phone in high V, that you may have partaken in some Jethro's barbecue last night if you're in the Clive region of West Des Moines. But, love those trips thinking about baseball with Junior. So we're off and going. We'll check in with the Iron Horse, Gary Sharp. He'll join us as well. Excited to get his perspective. But 9 a.m. baseball, you win. Is it a 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock start later, Elijah?
I'm worried about game one first, Schmitty. I worry about the future in the future.
Sure. So you'll worry about that later. But we'll talk about the mood of Nebraska football fans this summer, going into the summer months, the official kickoff to summer. Hope you have a wonderful Memorial weekend with family, friends, and lots of barbecue. Brandon, love you. You're in first. NASCAR Eric in at the buzzer as well in first. We can go co-1, can't we?
It was a two-way. It was a tie for first. I can say
it's 7:43.
So this stream as a whole was created at 7:43, and those two each beat me into the stream, so I'll give them both their props. We're going a unanimous draw.
Okay. There is no camera. There's no body cam footage here, so we don't know who won the photo finish. Moonbot, you're in. Good to have you, bud. Thank you much. for checking in. Steven is in. Steven, good to have you, dude. Good morning. Tuck is here. The other Brian says, what's up? NASCAR Eric, I love this. Getting ready to head to Fight Club, a.k.a. the racetrack, because my guy had to go get suspended for 2 months.
I saw that. It's probably going to be a busy. I saw one crew member, Eric, that was suspended 8 races. One was suspended 4, so it's going to be a busy month for you. I'm not sure if there's any appeals process in NASCAR, how that works. I apologize for my ignorance, but we were wondering what that entails for you over the next couple of months. So,
of course, NASCAR Eric, part of Steinhaus.
Stenhouse.
Love you. Stenhouse, love him checking in. Eat beef. Good morning. I had incredible beef last night. Went and met our dear friend Garth Glissman, his lovely wife, and the Pride of Fairbury and his friend. We went to a local eatery last night. I always see Gordon Ramsay make this, and it's beef Wellington. So I had that last night.
It's fantastic.
It absolutely was fantastic.
I've never tried to make it before.
No, it's pretty. You would think it'd be okay, but if you're going to shell out for tenderloin, which is incredible, you don't want to possibly screw that tenderloin up. Now you get the dough out, you coat it, you do all those things.
The nice crisp on the outside,
yeah,
and then there's that it's got a French name, I don't know, like essentially the mushroom reduction that they wrap the beef in. Together it's a lovely combination.
It's almost like it is like you get the ice cream cake from Dairy Queen, and let me just walk with me here. You have the vanilla, you have the chocolate, and then you have kind of that brownie bark,
okay. Yes.
Right?
Yep.
That to the bark we're talking about is the inside of the Wellington, right?
It's I remember the name. It's too early on a Saturday morning. It's the Duxelle.
Okay. Duxelle. Wonderful. Thank you there.
There's no
we need you wearing
a
a chef hat next Saturday. But no, it was awesome. Now I got to figure out, like, my goal this summer is to figure out how to do Caribbean jerk chicken.
Oh.
Because I go get a salad there and I have chicken put on my salad, and they do this incredible Jamaican jerk chicken that they make in house. It's just, chicken breast with, and I need to get some pointers from folks in the stream on a good rub to order or just seasoning. There's the 2 or 3 stores I go to for groceries. I can't find the jerk seasoning. So I want to start doing that as I eat a lot of chicken. So we did food talk there for 2 minutes. Forgive me. We have Tuck in. Good to have Tuck. Brandon here. Rick, good to have you, Rick. Rick checks in as well. Mr. Snitley, part of the Boulder Peace Treaty, is up and running this morning. Stephen Nichols is in. Good to have you in. Cranack is already RSVP'd. Is Cranack in the breakfast aisle? Is he buying Gatorades, or is he using Hy-Vee like many of us used Hy-Vee at 7:30 pre-baseball? We miss Mark as well. We'll get him back. Brennan from the Black Hills is in, and they're giving you a little trouble about how Saturday Night Fever you're going this morning with your shirt this morning.
It's Memorial Day weekend. I'm gonna let a little chest hair hang out. I'm gonna wear the low button down shirt. If you're not watching on the stream, good for you. But I am not gonna let a little bit of work on Saturday morning derail my Memorial Day weekend. And it should be noted, I would like to note first off the reason for the holiday. Whenever we get to Monday, it's in honor of all of those who have fought and died for our country. So let's lay that out there first. We're enjoying the freedoms that was given to us by them. So I want to make sure that is not forgotten on this Memorial Day weekend, but also I'm going to enjoy the freedoms that we have received as an American.
Yep.
And
the ultimate sacrifice. Yeah. Absolutely.
And that's the reason for the holiday. A lot of times that gets swept under the rug this weekend. I understand why, because of the cultural, just, what do you want to say? The cultural normalization of what Memorial Day is about, going to the lake, grilling, drinking some beers. I want to appreciate that this weekend, but I also want to remember the reason for the holiday. So let's lay that out here on a Saturday morning. But that being said, yes, I'm going to enjoy my Memorial Day weekend, and I'm wearing the low button-down Hawaiian shirt on a Saturday morning, and it feels great.
No, it was weird, not to go all weird and morbid, but in 1998, my grandfather, Grandpa Schmidt, he was in World War II. He was Army infantry. He was in France, and he didn't talk a lot about World War II, his experiences, and he had a couple of TBIs in his life, and I always loved him and just spending time. He was in Norfolk, so we go see him 2 or 3 times a year, and he's a huge Willie Mays guy. So that's one of the reasons, aside from just being a kid and loving the Royals when I was 2 feet tall, seeing the Royals up close and personal as a kid, George Brett was my guy. Well, Willie Mays was Grandpa Schmidt's guy. And even Grandma Schmidt in her later years, she lived quite a few years after Grandpa, and she loved Sammy Sosa. So it was a big baseball family. But Grandpa Schmidt, I bought him a San Francisco Giants, one of those starter hats. It wasn't the ugly starter hat. It was a normal black San Francisco Giants hat with the orange SF, and had that little starter thing on the back. And that was the hat he'd always wear. And he left that to me, so I have that in the closet. And I think of Memorial Day because he actually passed, I believe, on the 25th or the 26th. And so his funeral was that Saturday, and that was the first family member we ever lost. And so long and short, you see the cemetery in Norfolk decorated as we're going in for the burial, and there's, I don't know, thousands of flags, right? And then as you send a soldier off, you have the salute, the gun salute, and it was pretty powerful. So to your point, Elijah, bringing up what this weekend is all about, for sure. Those who fought and died for our country, it's absolutely the reason for the moment. So thanks for bringing that back, and just a memory from me, and the beauty of all the American flags and the honoring of those who've served and died for us. So,
and I'd like to add to this conversation. It's not as much of a personal connection as yours, Schmitty, but I got the chance after 8th grade, the old class trip out to Washington, D.C. It was just after
Arlington, just
after Memorial Day weekend, going out and seeing Arlington, and man, that puts things in perspective. Just the rows and rows and rows of headstones, and all of them have the American flag planted with them. If you ever get a chance in your life to go out to D.C. And see Arlington National Cemetery, get to see the changing of the guard, man, that's a powerful place to go out and see. And I think that's one of those things I always think back on in this weekend. Is just, man, you see pictures of Arlington, you never realize how big it is and how many people have made the ultimate sacrifice and been buried in our nation's capital until you go out there and see that. And man, does that put things in perspective. So highly encouraging out there, if you get the chance, go out and see Arlington. It's a powerful place to be.
Back to the stream we go. Kevin asking what hat Sharpie will wear today. He may go back-to-back Saturdays with the bucket hat. Vic, God love you, Vic. Vic is... You're on, says y'all were on time more than usual. Yes, we were. So told you we'd get in today at 7:45. Elijah was like, dude, we should go at 7:46 just to keep tradition. And I was like, nah, let's go. Brennan calls the inside of the beef Wellington mushroom spread. And yeah, whatever it's called. It was incredible. And you, Grandpa, good to have you. Ross is in. Ross, excuse me, I need to read the better this morning. Says, my great uncle died on D-Day at Omaha Beach. Wasn't quite sure where Grandpa was at in France. I don't know that it was Normandy or Omaha Beach, but I think he paratrooped in. What the cool story about Grandpa is he took a grenade. He and two of his comrades took a grenade in World War II. So he was injured and lost his left eye, and then was pretty much in an Army hospital for a month, multiple surgeries. But when he was in Houston, he got released, and then I guess the dude hitchhiked home from Houston back to Madison, Nebraska.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, so, but no, Grandpa Schmidt was a badass. He was awesome. I think about him a lot this time of year. So, Brandon asking, do you have family in Campbell, Nebraska? Late 90s, we used to go out and see Grandpa, my best friend Chad. I don't think we have much in Campbell. It was always Norfolk and the Madison region. So that is kind of our Northeast experience with Nebraska. So we will get to Nebraska baseball. Elijah, who do we, Will Bolt said they weren't going to declare a starter last night in the post game. I'm interested here to see if they do go with Christo. That just makes the most sense to me. And I want to go with this and not put too much on the moment, but you look at kind of the ups and downs of Christo as a starter, and this entire staff has been molded to just compete. We've heard our dear friend Jabba Chamberlain talk a lot about what Rob Childress is as a pitching coach, as a mentor, as a developer. And you've seen a guy, just for example, like Brockett, get challenged, get left off the travel roster, and then come back and put together some really clutch starts. Not only the no-hitter, but the clincher against Indiana. Now, a couple of his last starts haven't gone the way you wanted him to, but he's in a much better spot than he had been. You look at what you've gotten with Sears. I mean, a guy that's your Big Ten pitcher of the year goes out, is incredible against Purdue. McConaughey, phenomenal yesterday, right? I mean, so you've got two of your arms that you can really lean on. In Christo's last several outings in extended relief, he has been on fire. Is he ready to go back to being that guy? Because he's been groomed for a long time to be the guy. I mean, when you look at talent, when you look at stature, when you look at just tools, the guy's got it. And it would be a really cool story if you're a Nebraska baseball fan to see this full circle today where, all right, you've had some ups and downs, you've had some struggles and starts. They're looking for a midweek. All right, they're looking for a Sunday. They go back to him. He's been nails for extended relief. Do they turn to him again today to get you into game 2 on another elimination moment for Nebraska? That'd be a lot of fun for Nebraska baseball and Christo if he gets the ball today and he goes out and performs, because he's done a hell of a job here recently in extended relief, and he's looked like the guy you think he's supposed to have looked like for a longer part of his career. You're excited to see him trending this direction. If he can get the nod today and go perform, I think you'd smile for him and his family and the baseball squad for sure.
The thing is, though, is he seems to have hit his stride coming out of the bullpen. It hasn't been as a starting pitcher. That's where he seems to have flipped his switch, is coming out of that bullpen, being a guy who has the lead when he comes into the game in the 6th inning. And my question is do you want to screw with that? And I don't know. That's why guys
but you need him. I mean, what's your alternative options?
I mean, Brockett threw just over 50 pitches on Tuesday night, which could put him in position to be able to take the bump today. That's a guy I think of. I also think of Timmerman. He has been up and down at the end of the season. I know he didn't get all that much run here so far in the month of May after a rough end to April. But he's a guy that stepped in against Ohio State and pitched a pretty clean inning. I know he had a couple bases on balls, but a couple of strikeouts, got himself out of that inning. That's another guy I look at. It's going to be a game where we're going to see arms for Husker baseball.
See a lot of arms.
It's probably a game of 4, maybe 5 pitchers that you need to get through this one. And the story with Husker baseball so far this year has been whenever they turn to a lot of arms out of the bullpen, bad things tend to happen. And it's not one guy, or it's not the totality of arms. It's one guy comes into that bullpen and has a bad outing and puts you in a rough spot. So that is a big, big concern for me, is if you are turning to a lot of arms, if no one's getting more than 2 or 3 innings, somebody eventually is going to screw up for Husker Baseball out of that bullpen. That's who it is, and it's not an indictment on them. It's just the story of what Husker Baseball has been this year. When you're turning to arms out of the bullpen, somebody comes in and screws it up. So you'd like to see somebody that can get a solid 4, maybe even 5 innings starting this baseball game. And I'm thinking of guys that could be, I think Brockett's had enough rest to potentially be a guy you turn to. I know Timmerman hasn't had a start this year, but that's what happens in tournament time, is sometimes you're going to have to turn to guys that haven't been in that place so far this season. And that's why you lay out Cristo. I know he's done his best work out of the bullpen over the last couple of weeks, but he's also a guy that you expected to be a starter this year, has worked that role this year, and it hasn't always worked great, but he's got more experience than anyone else that you could potentially turn to today. So they have options. I'll be curious to see where Will Bolton Company decide to go. That's why they make the big bucks. But I don't know. It's a nervous thought to think of this being a bullpen game, because that's what tends to give Nebraska troubles this year, especially the midweek. That's been like essentially the story of the midweek all year long.
Well, at least it's a weekend and it's not midweek. Brandon Vogel with us from Counter Read, counterread.com. Always a Saturday morning staple. Vogues, how's your fastball this morning, bud? I mean, do you have any eligibility first? And second of all, if Will Bolton, Rob Childress went to the bat phone and said, Vogues, you got 6 innings in you. Can you hustle out there quickly, zoom up to Omaha and do a solid, brother?
That's probably not the best approach. I would make it. I don't know if I'd make it out of an inning without reaching a 6-inning like pitch count. Fastball's not too strong, and harbored dreams of, well, maybe anybody could learn to be a knuckleball pitcher, right? But I gave up on that decades ago. So I'm afraid I'll just be watching. I cannot offer any assistance.
Cool story. Dan Johnson, the big bopper for Nebraska during their CWS teams, he was with the Salt Dogs for a little bit, and Dan had quite a time in Major League Baseball and had some really awesome moments, specifically for Tampa. I mean, he hit some memorable home runs for him, especially in the postseason. And I think he spent some time in Seattle too. And old DJ's shifted in the latter part of his career to a knuckleball pitcher. I remember talking with him 3-4 years ago about it, and I have lost touch. I'd love to follow up on and see. I know he's retired. He's getting upper 30s, maybe even early 40s. But the point is you got this DH masher that in the last part of his career shifted to knuckleball. And I didn't pitch worth a damn in high school. It was the summer season, mind you, because some of us couldn't make the spring teams or even the summer teams. So it was a makeshift kind of alternative league.
They just call that pickup baseball, I think.
Well, but it was an organized team. We actually had practices, but remember one of my coaches, JJ, saying, Schmidt, how old are you? I'm like 18. He's like, you're not supposed to have a beer gut that big this early, son. So that's a little David Wells tribute. But on to baseball.
And Schmidt, one name we forgot to mention here, and maybe it's not a forgotten because it's not a name that comes to mind, but if you're reading into anything on Twitter here, Kyle Perry tweeted this morning channeling Trey Palmer today with woke up feeling pissed off. Is that a guy you could turn to start this game? And I know that's not where he's experienced this year, but that's like in terms of guys that have been with the Husker baseball program, the most experienced arm you have in Kyle Perry.
Absolutely.
Is that a guy you turn to in a moment like this and say, hey, I know this isn't your forte, but you're an experienced super senior type. We need you to go out there and eat up 3 or 4 innings to start this game. Could Kyle Perry be a starter if you woke up feeling pissed off?
He's somebody you go to at some point today because of his experience. And maybe, I mean, this guy's seen and done it all. So maybe you hand him the ball and just say, bro, I know it's gotten rocky your last few times out, but maybe they turn to him and maybe he puts a Jordan performance together for him. that would totally be within the realm of inconsistency and up and downs for this 6th super senior season. I love KP, and I hope if they go to him, he has an incredible outing, but that is somebody they've turned to. It's just not gone his way from time to time, but he's been such a leader and a team guy that maybe they feel, as old Lou Brown said, I think he's due.
I mean, that seems to be something Rob Childress, that seems right out of his playbook, is to go challenge the super senior on a day like today and say, hey, we need you to play like a super senior today. Go out and eat up some innings for us. That seems like it'd be out of his playbook.
I can imagine that conversation, Vogues. Just the bluntness of Rob Childress as he looks at his last few outings. Son, it's your time. Here's the ball. And if they go with KP and it doesn't go well, I mean, there's been a lot of second guessing going on with some moves here and there. But you and everybody else, especially if you're coming out of the elimination side of things, you're just hoping for some good things to stay alive. I mean, Penn State, my God, is still in this thing, correct? As the 8 seed. I mean, they're sitting with their feet up in a lemonade, you know? But I don't know. What's your feels, Vogues, on Nebraska today, round 1 against Indiana? They get slapped in the face, and then they respond in kind. That's the good thing. The resiliency part's been very true about this baseball team this season.
Yeah, being able to scratch one back against Ohio State, I think was, pretty meaningful. And I think you guys have hit it so far. Like, okay, here you are. To Elijah's point earlier, you kind of got a Tuesday night special on a Saturday morning in terms of the number of arms Nebraska is going to have to use. And those midweek games, more often than not, did not go well. So you're just looking for, I mean, this is kind of like the beauty, but also the big challenge with tournament baseball. You're just looking for something unexpected almost. Like, who's a guy who can give you 3.5, 4 innings that you're like, I wouldn't trust him to do that again tomorrow, but we got it today. I mean, that's kind of what you're looking at. Indiana, it's got a lot of leverage in terms of, Nebraska, if it wins, it's going to have to play twice today. So you just kind of throw the ball out there, make a call, and hope for the best, and know you're going to have to change things pretty frequently, I think.
That being said, if you can get game 1, I think you feel better about Nebraska in game 2 than you do about Indiana, just with the number of arms you have out of that bullpen. I know that you have at times had trust issues with that bullpen, but like Indiana is not a team that is known for their depth of their bullpen. And they're on game 3. They have 3 weekend starters. They don't have all that much experience, to be honest, whenever you look through the midweek this year. That's not something that they go and do frequently, is play midweek baseball. Like, it's a thought that if you can get through game 1, you might, despite all the issues you've had out of the bullpen, have the advantage in game 2 simply because you have a little bit more experience there with some bullpen games in those Tuesday night starts, as you said. It might play in Nebraska's favor if you can get game 1 just to make it to game 2, despite all the issues we've seen with bullpen starts this year.
Yeah, and to that, I would add, it's my NBA Game 6 theory. I've always thought that Game 6 is the most important game in a 7-game series, because one team's up 3-2. And if the team that's at 2 gets that game 6, like, I think the pressure, no matter how the series has gone and where game 7 is, like, really shifts to the team that didn't close it out. So maybe Nebraska can have a bit of that here.
Brendan Vogel with us here from Counter Read, counterread.com. We'll get some thoughts on Husker baseball about 45 minutes away at the Chuck. We'll see. And there's questions here from a regional standpoint. Stephen is in, Brandon in with a couple of different questions about seedings. And I know that, Baseball America always puts their projections out at each week, and I didn't dive into them. I don't know if either of you looked at them. Has Nebraska dropped to a 3 seed in some spots, or are they still at a 2? Did we see something along the lines of going to A&M as a 3 seed? Was that floating out there this week? Either of you have any
I saw
updates here?
As a 2 seed going to the Fayetteville Regional to go play Arkansas.
Okay, so it was Arkansas. It was okay. So they have gone from the strongest 2 seed to probably hanging on to the back of the bus, so to speak, as a 2 seed with how things were going in. They righted the ship a little bit. They're still alive today. They have a chance to get to Sunday championship. Great, but it's a tall order. Indiana, man, they're a good squad. They have a great combination of power and pop, and that was postseason baseball just a weekend ago. It felt like 2 weekends ago, excuse me, when they came to Haymarket. I mean, it was fun baseball, and the Big Ten's going to get Nebraska and whoever wins this damn thing in the NCAAs, but Indiana, to me, I think they should get looked at as an at-large. I know their RPI is not as great, but they look the part to me, man. They passed the eye test. Indiana, it's too bad they didn't have a better season from an injury standpoint, because that kind of derailed them after a really good early start. I want to go to football here. Kevin is in. The 15th 2 seed is Kentucky, according to D1. Kevin, thank you for the assist. Brandon's right. You win both today. It's gold. Recruiting. I know that was the latest from Counter Read. And Vogues, I know Aaron Sorensen had a really good write-up on Nebraska's recruiting machine. I want to get your take here on the organization of what Nebraska's doing, specifically what you think of their evaluation ability here when it comes to scouring local Texas and afar for the next crop of kids they want to bring in.
Yeah, I mean, had the quote about Nebraska having kind of the best recruiting database in the country, and intrigued. Like, let me see it, please. Let's talk more about it. But I don't know if that's really going to be in the cards. I mean, it's just such a massive undertaking now. Like, it would be interesting to know more details on this. And I understand why most places are reticent to share them. But like, how many people does Nebraska have like just working on the portal? Like, how many people does it have kind of scouring that? Because you got to have that arm of it too, in addition to high school. Now, I'm assuming, based on what we've seen with Nebraska in the portal and high school, and also what they've said, like they're probably more heavily weighted to high school players. The evaluation piece of it, I think we'll get our best look at it this season. Like, we'll see with some guys that were kind of off the radar a little bit, who I think are going to play in 2024 for the first amount of extended time. But even last year, you know, some of the top line guys in that first recruiting class, which is a tough one, made an immediate impact. And it'll also be interesting this year too, because Nebraska, I think the depth is better now, as it should be in a second year under a new staff. Are they still going to be willing to kind of fast forward guys? Like, there was no hesitation to play guys if they were freshmen a year ago. Is that still the case now that the depth is presumably better? So this will be an interesting year. I mean, the football season ahead is super interesting on a lot of fronts, but I think the recruiting one is a big piece of it that we probably don't talk about as much.
One thing to note here, sorry, I want to go back to baseball real fast, because I've been looking into this. I'm on the stat page for today's Husker baseball game. Listed as the pitcher for Husker baseball, Will Walsh.
Okay.
That can obviously change up until first pitch without any penalty, and they could just have a name thrown in there because the stat folks don't know just yet. But it should be noted, Will Walsh listed as the starting pitcher for Nebraska as it currently stands. So that could be the guy Nebraska rolls with in about 45 minutes.
He's had his Sunday moments, and he's had some really good outings for Nebraska this season, and he's somebody they trust. We kind of forgotten about Will when we were talking about that option. We were thinking Christo, possibly just 3 innings and 27 pitches on Thursday. Check that. Yeah, it was Thursday. Yeah. It's been a blur of a week. But no, I like the option and see how long Will can take it.
It was Wednesday, I think, for Christo.
See, point taken. Brandon Vogel with us from Counterread, counterread.com. Vogue's the NCAA settling their lawsuit. And, you know, there's payments to be had. There is money to be spent now by universities. We're talking $20 million if you can nut it. What about the walk-on part? I mean, is this the end of the walk-on? Is this the reality of now NFL style roster size caps where it's going to be 85? Give me a thought or two on that and how that affects Nebraska.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much unknown yet with this settlement. Like, kind of the only hurdle I think we've cleared is the biggest one that has existed for pretty much all of, well, the lifespan of the NCAA, which is the players are not employees, and thus they are not paid. There's, you know, the amateurism piece of it. So it looks like that wall has finally come down. I think everything else that has to shake out from that is a little bit TBD. So if the power conferences kind of get what they agreed to in theory with, you know, 20 million, that's the max revenue share that, you know, these schools are going to do. Like, effectively the splintering off of whether it's the SEC, Big Ten, whether it's the current Power Four, whether it's, you know, the top 60 teams, whatever it is going to happen. I mean, and you've got kind of a de facto professional league, for lack of a better term. So yeah, I think that does come with basically a harder cap on the roster. To the Commodore's point, I'm sorry I missed the name.
Brandon.
The NIL scholarship piece of this is pretty much gone. I think, you know, and that's one where not just with kind of the traditional walk-ons at Nebraska, but Nebraska was actively kind of trying to employ that strategy and, you know, basically I think run a roster that was 8, 10, 12 people greater that were effectively scholarship players through NIL than the 85. And that piece of it would be gone. Presumably. I mean, you know, who knows? There's like so much to kind of pencil out here, but I don't foresee a scenario where you can have 85 people on your roster are effectively, you know, part of the rev share. And then you've got another 10, 12, 15, 20 players who aren't. So that piece of it's probably gone.
But I would love to be able to, if they're going to cap your roster at 85, figure out a way to keep the walk-on part of it. And because it's practice squad where they can keep competing. I mean, it's been too good to Nebraska and the Wisconsins of the world. And it's also necessary for your football program where you got a Makovica that's going to punch the high-profile high school stud in the face four times a week, figuratively, of course.
Well, maybe figuratively.
During practice, and that makes everybody better because that's competition's king, man, in the world of rule, and that's how you win football games.
I mean, maybe this is silly to bring up as we're talking about players finally getting paid and this becoming, you know, kind of NFL light, but this is still meant to be. And I guess you always could have snickered at this, but I always kept part of it in my heart because I think it is true. Like, this is supposed to be kind of an educational enterprise, right? Like, I mean, I'm not talking about learning how to play football. I'm talking about the things that you learn just being part of team. I mean, there are a lot of people, a lot of really successful former Huskers who never played a ton. Like, maybe they practiced for 4 years. I think that's true at the high school level. Like, football's hard, and it's, you know, it's a sport that's got its own set of issues, like any other. But I think it teaches lessons that you don't get in a lot of other places. At least that was my experience. And so now you're going to eliminate that for, you know, 40 some guys probably if you're a Nebraska that that was always carrying a ton of walk-ons. It's tough in that regard to be just like, well, we can pay 85 guys, so that's it. Nobody else gets the opportunity. And that's going to have a trickle down effect. Like there's going to be less opportunities for those guys who may have walked on at Nebraska to go lower. They'll probably be fine if they're good enough to walk on at Nebraska. But what happens to the guys who get knocked down a rung then from there? Sure. I mean, it's just there's so much. It's almost impossible to wrap your head around.
The other Dave chimes in on the stream. He thinks he may have found a loophole. There's always a loophole, right? He says if they get rid of the walk-on program, create a club football team, which actually, the more I think about, potentially you could have a club football team. I guess I don't know with the rules. There's a lot that's unknown. You could have a club football team that comes up and practices with the team, but then on, say, Thursday nights, they're off and playing club football and having their own games in that way. It could actually create more opportunities for walk-ons in that way. I don't know. There's always a loophole, and there's so many unknowns with this that I struggle to look down the road and say, well, this is going to disadvantage Nebraska. This is going to be an advantage to Nebraska, because there's always a loophole, and there's always people that try to exploit loopholes. So, Brendan, to flip this around, in what ways could this new setup where you have a payments directly to players as revenue sharing, in what ways do you think it could benefit Nebraska?
Well, I think the big one is they should be, presumably. Nebraska has made a lot of the fact that it has been, it basically has run in the black for a long time now. With the stadium stuff, we heard some comments from Dannon kind of indicating like, yeah, maybe that's not the case. And he was specifically referring to that. But I think, Nebraska is a program that whatever the max revenue share is, like, they're going to be ready to do that. And so I don't know if that's an advantage, but it's not a disadvantage, because there are going to be some schools that either just won't or probably would struggle to do that. And then what do you do? Because then it's like clear to everybody, as if it wasn't already. But it's like, oh, am I going to go to a program that only shares 10 million? If you're a talented high school football player, no, you're going to go to one that goes all the way to 20. And so I presume like most of the power schools will figure out a way to get there, but I don't know. I think I think it levels things more than it creates advantages for anyone. Like, we could look at kind of the current NIL setup and be like, oh, there's going to be some schools that are just ready to go and have really devoted fan bases, Nebraska being one of them. I think that kind of goes away when everybody can kind of share the same amount.
Do you think NIL goes away? These collectives paying players, is that going away for good? Is it going to be minimized? What do you think that looks like in the new era?
They're the salary cap, aren't they?
Well, I mean, NIL can't go away like legally. I think the big question will be is how many guys take advantage of it. And I'd wondered that, I've wondered that for a while before this week's announcement. I was just like, if a guy is getting, I even penciled out like, 20 million is for all sports, not just football. So like, I don't even know what that would look like. Let's call it $50,000 for a football player. Just like, yep, I'm one of the 85. I get 50 grand. That's where I'm at. Does that alleviate kind of your desire to go out there and like really pursue NIL? Some guys it might, some guys it won't. I just wonder what the numbers look like there. I think at the top end, you're still going to need to compete hard for like, the 4 or 5 star players in terms of NIL. So you're going to need to have a good NIL program in addition. I mean, I guess there's nothing really about the setup as we've seen it so far that eliminates what NIL is being used to do right now, which is kind of lure the best and brightest. So I don't know. I think it'll be doled a little bit. The big question I have is just how much. Are there guys who are like, well, yeah, this covers my needs. My school was already paid for, room and board, all of that stuff. So I'm just going to focus on football.
Brandon Vogel's with us from counterread.com. It's where you can log on and subscribe. We'll get Vogues' thoughts on Counter Read in just a moment. Vogues, before we let you go, I wanted to get your take here. Josh Pate from Late Kick did a quick segment on Nebraska, specifically Nebraska, the fan base, the vibes that Nebraska fans, and he painted this picture pretty well where it's index finger to lip and it's shh. There's just, they don't want to get too excited, too ramped up because the Frost experiment is not that far in the rearview mirror. You've been hurt. You don't want to get hurt again. But I think the excitement is absolutely growing and growing and growing. And wanted to kind of get your feedback and feel from your viewers and, of course, your readers. Just what's the vibe you're getting here as we head into this very intriguing summer?
Yeah, as the guy who maybe not smartly started writing in January, hey, things are looking favorable for Nebraska. And I would have said the opposite if the opposite were true.
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of treat all these off seasons the same, and teams move in and out of this group where you're like, oh, you got good return in production. Schedule looks pretty decent. Last year was a little bit undervalued. That's usually a team that improves. I would say the difference lately has been, or the difference I have noticed is the media attention on Nebraska as a team to watch is really ramping up. You mentioned Pate, Joel Klatt in a couple of instances has been out there really high on Nebraska. And I think that's going to continue as the summer. I think it's the difference between getting through spring football and everyone feeling like, okay, the rosters are kind of settled down. We can really jump into projecting the season ahead. That said, as far as the community that we're building at Counter Read and the people who are in our comments most often, I would say cautious, is the word. I would agree with Josh's assessment on that one. It's been like, hey, this is all good. Like it's nice to see this laid out of, here's some positive signs for Nebraska, but we've been here too much before. And I think it's just going to be that way until Nebraska one of these years finally exceeds expectations rather than fails to hit them.
No, that's the thought of Nebraska fans. Let's see it happen, as they say on the grass. And we're less than 100 days till kickoff. Vogues, tell us about Counter Read again, and how can folks get subscription and check out what you and Aaron are doing?
Yeah, you can head over to counterread.com. It's twice weekly Substack from myself and Aaron. We're still going full bore into the off season. At least football's off season. The darkest days of the college football calendar. June and July gets pretty quiet, but we've got a plan. There's still a lot of stuff that I want to dig into as far as football and getting ready for the season. As well as getting ourselves ready. We started Counter Read the week of the first game last year. So we've got some new things coming in terms of, if you're a podcast person, I think narrated articles, eventually a podcast that we've been talking about. So if you've been checking us out a little bit, or this is the first time you're hearing about it, head over to counterread.com. You can sign up for free to start. That gets you access to all of the free articles we do, and then subscribers get the additional 2 newsletters a week.
Vogues, I love it. I love getting that email a couple of times a week from Counter Read each week. Brandon Vogel, Counter Read, counterread.com. Vogues, enjoy your holiday with family. Appreciate you much.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
You too. There he is. Brandon Vogel with us. The Iron Horse joins us from the Chuck, as it is Nebraska, it is kegs, it is eggs, it is morning baseball. Gary Sharp with us. Sharpie, how we doing this Saturday morning?
Hey, good morning, guys. Welcome to the Day Trader Downtown Ballpark in Omaha. Beautiful day for baseball.
Oh, it's electric outside, just the backyard. A little bit of a breeze. I'm not where you're at. Unfortunately, we need to make that happen like you suggested last weekend. But we didn't get up to Omaha. We are getting Gary Busey strays fired at Elijah from the other Brian. Elijah's wearing a shirt that looks like something Gary Busey would wear in Point Break.
Hey, I'm taking that as a compliment here. And Gary, we also have a question in on this stream. Considering you're on the phone, we need to know, what hat are you wearing on a Saturday morning?
You know what? I have gone hatless today.
Wow.
Which, as I know, because I showered today. Usually when I don't shower, I wear a hat. I'm just telling you, that's just how it works when you get my age and you're like, F it.
Uh-huh. I love it. Gary Sharp with the Sharpie. Will Walsh today. That's the info that we have found. Your take
He is pitching, yes.
on what he can do. We've seen some good Will Walsh, and we've seen some touched up Will Walsh.
Well, they're going to have to score some runs today. The wind is blowing out to left field, so it could be a hitter's day. I like Will in this ballpark, the way he attacks the zone and just the kind of pitcher he is. But Nebraska, at the end of the day, Nebraska is going to have to score some runs. This isn't going to be a 2-1 type ball game. Nebraska is going to have a crooked number inning here or there. And if they're able to do that, they keep their time in Omaha alive. But they're going to need a big outing out of Will Walsh. And, fortunately for Nebraska, Brett Sears and Mason McConaughey have helped you where you haven't had to go into the bullpen, because when you get to the weekend of these tournaments to stay alive, especially if you have to win like a couple of games today like Nebraska, it becomes pitching anarchy. And you'd never know who's coming out of the bullpen. So I think in that case, Nebraska's in a good spot. But I like Will in this ballpark, but I think it can't be all Will. I think Nebraska's going to have to score 4, 5, 6 runs today at least to win and force another game later today.
Gary, have you checked in with your friends in Vegas? Do you know what the total on the game is today, and why are you taking the over no matter what it is?
I don't know what the total is for my friends at Vegas or here in Omaha at 30th and Ames, where they've got a great bookie house, by the way.
Look at you, bro.
Yeah, that might not be the address. I'm just saying. But I think today is one of those days where there's going to be some runs scored. So I would take the over. I just think when you get to, because Indiana's on their third starter, Nebraska is on their midweek starter. This is the kind of game like as a midweek game. And if you look at Sundays in the Big Ten, those are Sunday run days where you just try to score as many runs as possible and hold on, or you get that unbelievable pitching performance. But I wouldn't doubt Will Walsh here. Will Walsh has performed pretty well here. But again, Nebraska's got to keep the bats continuing to going. Gabe Swanson's been a great breath of fresh air. Gabe Swanson here looks like Gabe Swanson of last year when he was hitting 18 home runs and looked comfortable at the plate. Glad to see his confidence is back.
Gary Sharp with us, the Iron Horse Hail Varsity Weekend Edition. Sharpie is on the grounds of Schwab. It's Nebraska, Indiana, so we're getting a live in-person report. Sharpie checking out the Hoosiers and Huskers, game 1 of hopefully 2 if you're a Nebraska baseball fan today. Spend a minute here on McConaughey and Sears in some do-or-die moments, and the overall just development we've seen from both those guys from Rob. It's been interesting, Gary, with Nebraska baseball. When folks are, going fire drill on the Nebraska baseball bandwagon, the door is always left open for folks to come on back in. And Nebraska's 2 monster arms really delivered this week when there was some really bad feels after the 15-2 beatdown.
Well, the performance on Tuesday was pathetic. That's embarrassing. I get Saban Sears because he threw 94 pitches in East Lansing, and you want to keep him on regular rest so his next time he pitches is Friday in the NCAA tournament. So I understood that. I did not understand the effort that was given on Tuesday night, but this team has shown a lot of resiliency, and especially those 2 guys. Nebraska baseball Twitter is unhinged. The season is a novel, but we kind of look at it sometimes, not us, but people do look at it like as a football season where one game is like, oh my gosh. And that's when Will Bolt and Rob Childress are fired. I mean, they've been fired and rehired so many times this year, I've lost track. But you got to give credit to Rob. Rob doesn't trust a lot of guys in the bullpen, but he's got in his first year back as the full-time pitching coach. He's got the Big Ten Pitcher of the Year. He's got 2 of the top 3, and he may have fixed Caleb Clark and Drew Christo, and also, some other guys that they've gotten performances out of. But this is the kind of day today where, who does he trust most down in that bullpen? But I think Rob's had a great year. Look at the ERA. Look at what they've done with the staff. The problem is they just don't have a lot of confidence in other guys in the bullpen. I bet you could only, if you pressed Rob, there's probably only 5 guys that he really trusts. But those 5 guys have been money for him, especially Sears and McConaughey. And they pitch like you need to pitch when your back is against the wall in a tournament like this. And I think it also gives us hope, guys, whether Nebraska's going to Lexington, Kentucky, Norman, Oklahoma, or Fayetteville, Arkansas next week. You're throwing Brett Sears on a Friday in essentially an 8-9, March Madness type game in a 2-3. You like those chances. And then if you have to either win to go to the Sunday game at 2-0 or keep your season alive, I like McConaughey as well. So I think from that standpoint, considering what he has to work with, I think it's been a good year for Rob in his first year. And he can put Brett Sears on his resume because, guys, Brett Sears last year to where he is now, that's pretty damn impressive.
Gary, I don't want to look too far ahead here, but in a regional, it's Sears on Friday. Did McConaughey show you enough yesterday to think maybe he gets the nod in game 1?
No, I think you go with your horse. I think, and also, if you look at McConaughey, the amount of pitches he threw yesterday, I think that extra day of rest will help him and keep him on his regular rotation. I think when you get to the NCAA tournament, you do not overthink it, especially if guys are on full rest, that your Big Ten Pitcher of the Year gets the ball in game number 1 because you're not a number 1 seed. You're a number 2 seed, and there won't be much separation between Nebraska as a 2 and whoever is the 3 in their regional.
It's Gary Sharp with us here, a Saturday morning edition, Hail Varsity Radio. And Gary, back to the task at hand today. There was the quote making the rounds last night from Ohio State's head coach saying Nebraska's got their hands full tomorrow, but if there's any team in the Big Ten that can go and take 2 from Indiana on a Saturday, it's Nebraska. Your thoughts on that? Obviously, you don't want to look too far ahead to game 2, understanding what you have to do with Will Walsh in the bump and here in game 1. But your thoughts on that? If Nebraska can get game 1, do you like their chances to go and take 2 today?
I do. If they win the first one, I say they win the second one. But I'm telling you, the first one's going to be difficult. I wonder also, does the Ohio State coach not like Indiana? That's my biggest takeaway. Does he have something against Indiana?
Sharpie, we've got a comment in from Brandon, going to shift from baseball to a football thought. If I can here we go. Brandon asks the question. So it's a futures question with Nebraska football. Would you bet the futures on the following: to make the playoff, to get to the Big Ten championship game, or is the pick going the over on the 7.5 number from Circa?
Well, I think the Big Ten championship and the playoff are tied together because I think the 2 teams that will always make the Big Ten championship will be in the playoff. Okay. I have said 7 and 5. Here's what is really interesting. All of us have talked about it. You guys have talked about it on your show. Is usually when Nebraska is a trendy pick, it starts in-state. Like everybody that follows Nebraska on a daily basis, we usually start the trendy Nebraska, and then we get our hand slapped by the national people. Isn't it interesting, guys, how the national people have made Nebraska a very trendy hey, they might be a number 25 in a poll team. They might actually surprise some people. Isn't that interesting? On the vantage point of the national compared to the local. And I'm not telling you that us around here have been like, I don't know. You can't go 5 and 7 forever. So at some point you say, F it, I'm all in. But it's been the national against the local, where usually it's the local against the national, and we're told, oh no, you're Nebraska, stand down.
No, you've got great relationships with Matt Rule and national folks, and that's not why they're doing this. They've just seen what he's done in the past, and if he thinks year 1 was more feeling like a year 2, then year 2 for Rule now might be a year 3, and that's when his teams have jumped to that 10, 11, 12 win number between Temple and Baylor. So if that's the timeline he feels like he might be on, that might be some of the math the national guys are doing, and they want to look smart doing it. Because I still remember, dude, the Ken Simonton, Oregon State Sports Illustrated, right? You want to talk about throwing a dart blindfolded with the preseason nags. But if you're not too crazy to throw Nebraska in the top 25, you're not too crazy to maybe circle 8 or 9 wins, best case scenario. Things got to go right from an injury standpoint. They got to go right from young guys as good as advertised, and they aren't affected by this jump in level of play. But you've got a lot of good that's back from an experience standpoint. And I think you could see some guys really give an exclamation point to their senior season and have a great senior season where it's been quite a journey for them to get to this point. And I think they go out with a real good bang. I mean, think of some of the guys in past years. I mean, guys that waited their time, and then when it was their time, they killed it. And you're like, damn, it'd have been cool to have another year of that guy. But I think you could see those instances, a handful of those this season for Nebraska, if we're talking best case scenario.
Yeah, I'll give you a little. A local lineman who is from Omaha, I saw out the other night, and I asked him. I said, "Okay, be honest with me." I go, "How you feeling?" And he said, he point blank, guys, he said, "We have something going. We have something going." Now, what does that mean for this upcoming season? Because he's someone that's got a couple of years of eligibility remaining. Internally, I know they're very excited about the potential, that the roster is better than the last time they walked off the field. The knowledge of what they're trying to do, the X's and O's, is better than when they walked off the field. And then the bottom line, which we will talk about for another 98 days, is when you combine a defense that they are so high on with at least a quarterback that showed you that he can be at bare minimum competent, I think that just elevates how you're feeling about the season. And I think it changes your mindset as a player when you attack the offseason of like, man, if things go our way and we do our job, we have a chance to have a special season. And you're right, Schmidt and Elijah, when you look at guys that have been in the program for a while, they haven't gotten to experience success. And it goes back to Rule before the things got going last year. He talked to his older guys and he said, "Hey, this first year is going to be a little bit choppy. Just hang with us. But I promise in year number 2, we will deliver a season for you that you can remember." So you tie all those things together. I think there's some good momentum. Now it's just, can they use this good momentum and what they're building? Can they use it on Saturdays where they get validated and those two things come together, which, has been few and far between over the last 6-7 years.
Gary, considering it's Nebraska, it's a little weird as we talked about yesterday on the show and a little bit with Vogel. It's a little weird that the mindset around Nebraska is don't talk about Nebraska. We don't want expectations. We can't get hurt again. Is it better for Nebraska to go into the season with low expectations, or considering it's Nebraska, do you think it's better for the team to have expectations and rise to those? I guess, what is your thought on just lack of juice isn't the right way to put it, but just this mindset around Nebraska that fans don't want to get hurt again. They want to see before they believe.
I think that's absolutely fair. I think you can look at a program and digest information on your own and then make a decision. If somebody's saying, "Oh man," I heard the guys on Hail Varsity and they were talking about this optimism. "Oh, I'm all in," or "I'm not going to buy it." That's on you, but you have to at least recognize that they're a better program than they were when they last played, and that's what you were asking for. I think there are some that are going to be like, you know what? At some point, Nebraska can't be 5-7 forever. And it feels like this is different, but I'm in the camp of I like what I see, and I think there's a plan and they're heading in the right direction. And when they get there, they're going to stay there instead of a yo-yo. But that game 98 days from now, and then of course the following week, can't get here soon enough, so we can at least put eyeballs on a game where they put they turn the scoreboard on and keep score. And then these things that they've talked about, you see come to fruition instead of the little taste we got in the spring game. But I don't think there's anybody that can deny that the vibe is different, the talent is different, and most importantly, the quarterback is different. And think about it. We can go back and till we're blue in the face, guys. Nebraska has competent quarterback play last year. Nebraska could have tricked off an 8-win season.
Sharpie, we'll get you out on this. Thanks again for checking in from Nebraska, Indiana, Hail Varsity Weekend Edition. Just a reaction to the NCAA settlement with revenue sharing. Nebraska saw this coming or planned for this. What's your thought on Nebraska moving forward here in this new world?
Well, college sports didn't die the other day. College sports has been changing, and now we have some direction on where it's going to go. I think from Nebraska's standpoint, guys, money is a thing. We can talk about Nebraska. It makes all this money, and they get all this money from the Big Ten. But Nebraska needs to find that new revenue source. At least they're planning ahead. I'll give credit to Trev. Man, Trev saw this. So he was already talking about it a couple of years beforehand. Dannon knows it, so he's already talking about it. The thing that I wonder, and the questions that are out there that will still probably be a while to be resolved, is what's going to happen with Title IX? Are there going to be caps on rosters? Because we know in football, if there's a cap on a roster, that really impacts Nebraska, which so much has a walk-on program. A lot of these questions are out there. And then also, at the end of the day, our athletic director is going to look at their respective programs with what is their value. What are they bringing to the table in terms of value? So there's a lot of things out there. I think Nebraska, because they're in the Big Ten, is still positioned well, but it's changing. It's some people don't like it, and they'll be like, you know what, just another dagger in what I'm looking at my college sports and it's professional sports light. Hey, it's been going that way for a while. It's now kind of officially there. But I think Nebraska's in a good spot to handle it because they're inside of the Big Ten. But don't take anything for granted. This is going to be a monumental shift that's going to change how athletic programs operate.
Gary, last thought here as we get you out and we get ready for Husker Baseball. I know Schmidt said last thought, but I have one more light question for you. For the fans that are going up to the Chuck, maybe they're streaming this as they walk into the stadium right now. What is the beer of choice from a concession stand at the stadium at 9 a.m.? Is there a right choice?
You know what? I didn't. Yeah, red beer. I don't think they sell mimosas. But I also would question people that are drinking mimosas at a baseball game because it's hot here today. I mean, already at 9 a.m. the sun's beating down. I don't know. I think you start with a good old, fashioned American beer. You maybe go with a Busch Light. Maybe if you've forgiven Budweiser, you have a little Bud in your hand. But I'm looking down here. Red, white, and blue. I think coffee is the choice this morning. I think people are easing into what they anticipate to be a long day. So they haven't hit the hard stuff yet. It's more like the coffee, but there might be some Baileys in that coffee as well. Yes. Yeah.
If you're going the Elijah Herbel 11 a.m. kickoff, you just throw straight Jack directly into that coffee. Who needs Baileys? Start your day right, but that's just me.
Says the Gary Busey tribute T-shirt today.
Hey,
I love
Elijah, not everybody has the great relationship you have with Jack. There are more people that have a bad relationship with Jack.
I mean, that's fair, but doesn't stop you from having a good time. You can have a bad relationship and still have a lovely Saturday morning. A lot of people do that with their exes,
Sharpie, wow. Enjoy your weekend on that, Sharpie. We'll check in with you again soon. Always appreciate you, man.
Hey, thanks, guys. Have a great weekend. Be safe, everybody. And if you're coming up to the Chuck, plenty of seats available.
Appreciate it. There he is, the Iron Horse, Gary Sharp, live from Charles Schwab as he's gearing up for Nebraska, Indiana. And Cliff, good to have you. Red Beers do rock. And Cliff says Elijah's heading to the disco. You got to wear more stuff from your closet, brother. This is pretty good commentary on Saturday morning.
Yeah, no, I had
needs to
some
work on his tanning game or his chest hair game. Otherwise, button up.
I had some doubts as I was walking out. My roommate got home from work last night and fell asleep at 5:30 p.m. So he woke up at damn near 4 a.m. this morning, fully rested. So he was just hanging out on the couch wearing playing video games and drinking his coffee as I left the house at just after 7 a.m. this morning. And I had to check through with him. I'm like, is this work appropriate? And he goes, yeah, it's Memorial Day weekend. And I was like, okay. So that was all the confidence I needed to wear this. I can start doing this more on Saturday mornings. I can pull out the bro tanks on Saturdays. I have a deep closet.
Well, Uncle Andy, my brother-in-law, has a great collection of bro tanks. There is no Uncle Andy is not a furry dude, so he doesn't have.
You have to be careful with that now because that has a different connotation in 2024.
Sorry, he does not have just gross patches of back hair.
Okay, fair.
Okay,
saying somebody is not furry or not a furry, that's you're asking for trouble in 2024. It's
Mr. Snitley, part of the Boulder Peace Treaty, orange juice and Michelob Light for the morning game. He's going to switch it up and go Cornhead Lager with a little OJ. The orange beer, good work. David says, give me a Jack Daniels from the single or Jack Daniels single barrel. I was thinking a Jack Daniels at the single barrel sounds pretty good this morning. Our home for game day Saturdays. So, but yeah, single barrel Jacks, all good. Elijah, we'll let you get the eye black on and gear up for this first pitch at 9. We appreciate you tuning in. We'll be back at you on Tuesday for Hail Varsity at 4. Always subscribe, Hail Varsity YouTube channel. Like and subscribe. Tell a friend. Spotify, iTunes, Google Play for the audio download. Those platforms have it. Give us a review, good, bad, or ugly. We appreciate it. And give us a follow on Twitter at HVarsity Radio, the radio Twitter handle at Herbal Essence, for Elijah at Schmidt_radio. And we'll get you ready for Big Red Baseball. We'll talk to you later on with Hail Varsity, powered by Cornhead Lager.